now it's time for us to start the life and paleogeography of the Paleozoic era. Actually, the Paleozoic era, it is the time in which the earth has seen many of the first life forms that were evolved on land. Earlier the life was in the ocean, and then it heralded onto the land. So, many of the important geological events and biological events happened during the Paleozoic era. It spans for about 290 million years, and it has witnessed the advent of major invertebrate and vertebrate fauna, the first appearance of land plants, and their effect on the flow pattern of the river system also form an interesting part of the Paleozoic. Additionally, major glaciation events, formation of coal, assembly of the continents are also included. First eyes that saw the world were probably of an extinct arthropod community of trilobites, also have the evidence of appearance and disappearance in the Paleozoic. That means Paleozoic was the time when those animals, those organisms were evolved that has seen this world for the first time. The first trees, the first fishes, many of the things on earth happened for the first time during Paleozoic. Unfortunately, many of the earth's wonderful biological creatures became extinct by the greatest catastrophe of the Permian Triassic event. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the paleogeography and the life forms during Paleozoic. It is divided into 6 periods, which will be discussed in this lecture in the consecutive manner. The first of which is the Cambrian period. The name Cambrian is derived from Cambrio, which was given by A. Sedgwick in 1830 for poorly fossiliferous greywack and siltstones developed in Wales. The Cambrian succession in India is mainly developed in the Tethyan zone of Himalaya, where it lies above the Proterozoic rocks. Earlier, the beginning of the Cambrian was taken with the first appearance of trilobites, but in the last few decades, 2 or more stages have been added below the Cambrian, that is named as Tomotian and Nemakitian Dalenian. Now, the Cambrian paleogeography is something which we will be discussing. In the early Cambrian time, most of the continents were fused together, retaining their late Proterozoic configuration. The Gondwana land along with India in Cambrian was located in the equatorial belt. Globally, there was a major transgression when new areas were flooded and eventually followed by the deposition of early Cambrian sediments. At the end of early Cambrian, there was a minor regression and another in the late Cambrian, especially in the North America. This regression continued into the Ordovician, affecting the Gondwana land. In the late Cambrian, separation of land masses already started, thereby reducing the size of the Gondwana land located near the equator. Mountain building activities occurred on the eastern margin of Australia, producing Adelaide mountain belt. So, this was the paleogeography. Now, we will be talking about the life during the Cambrian. During the Cambrian time, trilobites were the most common and many of them being short-lived. Trilobites, as I told you, are the first animals that have seen the world, and these trilobites, they were living only for about 1 million years as they evolved, and that makes them good index fossils. What is an index fossil? Index fossil is that fossil that lives on earth for a short period of time and it has a huge horizontal extent. That means it occurs everywhere, but for a short period of time. So, those forms, they are fossilized and they record time very well. So, they give as a sense of the time, they add a dimension to the rock, and that is why they are called as index fossils. 2 trilobite provinces are known in Cambrian, namely Redlichid and Olinellid characterized fauna. The algal stromatolites, which were very prominent in Proterozoic, it also continued in Cambrian, but with the declining frequency. Why declining frequency? Why? Because the grazers evolved in Cambrian. This was a kind of a fodder. The stromatolites, the algal forms, it was a kind of a fodder. So, it was in Proterozoic because nobody was available to eat, but in Cambrian many organisms evolved. So, that this fodder though, or the stromatolites, it has declined in frequency. Brachiopods are limited with the varieties limited along with some of the other mollusks also. Echinoderms, they show a great variety. Conodonts and ostracods make their first appearance. Many animal groups with soft bodied animals including arthropods, they are common. Planktonic acritarchs are also common in the late Cambrian. Nautiloids make their first appearance. Jawless fishes are also found. On the carbonate platform, archaeocyathids along with the Cretaceous or calcareous algae from the reef, a great variety of the Cambrian time were herbivores with carnivores appearing in the late Cambrian. An extinction event in the late Cambrian eliminates most of the trilobites and nautiloids. After the Cambrian comes Ordovician. The name Ordovician was proposed by Charles Lapworth. He proposed that the upper part of the Sedgwick's Cambrian and lower part of the Murchison's Silurian should be considered as a separate unit in a new system. The name Ordovician was given after the tribes Ordovices that lives in Wales in about 1879. In India, the rocks of Ordovician age, they are poorly developed and are studied in enough details, but unfortunately we do not have that much of the detailed account on Ordovician. They are only found in the Tethyan zone in Himalayas in the region of Kashmir, Spiti and Kumaon, with possible extension in Nepal and Bhutan also. As far as the Ordovician life is concerned, the late Cambrian mass extinction has eliminated a large number of nautiloid and trilobite genera. Trilobites are present in the Ordovician, but also in the low frequencies, and several new animal groups adopted new strategies. Most of the organisms inhabited the sediment flow. Important index fossils are articulate brachiopods, graptolites and conodonts. Rugose corals make their appearance and crinoids became diversified. The abundance of the gastropods, echinoids and ostracods also increased. The bivalves adopted burrowing habit and starfishes were of common occurrence. In the carbonate environment, reefs are present made by bryozoa, stromatoporids and tabulate corals. The algal stromatolites became very rare. The end of the Ordovician witnessed huge diversification of fauna in producing large number of new families which continued in the later part of the Paleozoic. Then comes the paleogeography of the Ordovician. During Ordovician, the sea level remained higher. There was a sea level fall during the late Ordovician affecting fauna only to a limited extent. The continent of Baltica moved northwards and collided with England and Laurentia. The Gondwana land moved southwards from its equatorial position. The northern margin of Gondwana land was still in equatorial zone. There is an evidence of glaciation in Ordovician, which has caused the extinction of marine organisms in marine realm naturally. The evidence of Ordovician glaciation is known from the central Sahara region in Africa. The collision of North America, namely Laurasia with island arc, caused the tectonic orogeny in late Ordovician. The tectonic orogeny led to the narrowing of the Iapetus Ocean, which separated Laurentia from the Baltica. The late Cambrian mountain building activity of the eastern Australia, named the Adelaide Mountain Belt in Antarctica, also continued into the Ordovician. This orogeny has caused continental accretion during the eastern margin of the Australia. Ordovician gives way to the new time which is called as Silurian. The name of Silurian was proposed by Murchison in 1835 after the inhabitants of Wales known as Silures. In India, sediments of the Silurian age are present only in the Tethyan zone of Himalaya. It was poorly developed fauna has so far been recorded. As far as the Silurian life is concerned, the beginning of the Silurian, it show diversification of many animal groups. However, the trilobite shows little decline. The brachiopods, they show extensive adaptive radiation and are represented by a large number of taxa. Crinoids and bryozoa, they increased further. Acritarchs form an important plankton group in Silurian. The graptolites, they show spectacular diversity. Many swimming organisms became prominent. Eurypterids means the scorpions that live in sea. They were very giant scorpion. So, these Eurypterids, they became very common. The fishes with jaw started appearing. The coral reef building activity was prominent in the carbonate environment. Silurian reefs were much bigger than those of the Cambrian and Ordovician time, and they are made up of tabulate corals, stromatoporoids and rugose corals. The land was first time invaded by the vascular plants. That is an important part. That means in the Silurian, the plants moved from the ocean to the land. So, the land of the earth had the plants for the first time in Silurian. Then it is time for us to discuss the paleogeography of Silurian. During Silurian time, the sea level was higher most of the time, with lowering of the sea level at the end of Silurian. In most of the areas, the climate was warm and large scale deposition of the carbonates and evaporites in shallow marine system took place in the North America. The land masses of Laurentia and Baltica joined together, and the event is described as Akkadian orogeny. This orogeny at the end of Silurian in the Europe is called as the Caledonian orogeny. After the Silurian comes Devonian. The Devonian system was proposed by Murchison and Sedgwick in 1839. The name was given to the rocks exposed in the area of Devonshire in England. These Devonian rocks in England are known in Old Red Sandstone in India. The rocks of Devonian age are present in the Tethyan zone, essentially represented by the cream colored sandstone known as MOOC quartzite, which is mostly unfossiliferous except for a few fossiliferous horizons. The name of MOOC is given after the Pin Valley in Spiti. Then comes the Devonian life. During Devonian time, most of the fauna of Silurian time continued and became more diversified. Many new forms are added. Brachiopods and mollusks became very common. The first freshwater mollusk or lamellibranch made its appearance in Devonian. The ammonoids appear and become important nectic fauna. Nectic means those that swim. So, they were swimmers. Eurypterids or the sea scorpions continued into the Devonian. The fishes with jaw or the jawed fishes show prominent diversification and also move to the freshwater regions. On the land, vascular plants diversified. That means those that came on the land for the first time in Silurian diversified in Devonian. The spore bearing plants were joined by the seed bearing plants. That means the seed bearing plants were first heralded on earth in Devonian. On the land, amphibians, scorpions and insects started to develop. That means with the coming of the plants on land, new ecosystems started to develop on the land, because as the plant will come, new animals or organisms that are ecologically related with those plants will also be evolved naturally. In the carbonate depositional area, the reefs were extensively large, made up of tabulate corals, stromatoporoids and rugose corals. Extensive Devonian reef complexes are known from the Australia and Canada. The end of the Devonian is marked by important large scale extinction. Many types of fishes, brachiopods, ammonoids, gastropods, trilobites disappeared. Tabulate corals, stromatoporoid community also collapsed. The pelagic fauna also show extinction. Most of the extinction took place in the fauna of the tropical region, and these extinctions are sometimes called as Frasnian Fehmarnian extinction. Then we will be discussing about the paleogeography of Devonian. During Devonian time, sea level was higher. The climate was mostly warm and dry. There was a large scale reef development and salt deposition, especially in the North America and Australia. The mountain chain formed due to Caledonian orogeny was extensively eroded, and the sediments were deposited by fluvial processes on the continents known as Old Red Sandstones. In the southern Gondwana land, cold marine faunal provinces developed with its characteristic molluscan fauna, which is known as Malvino-Caffric province. This this kind of province developed in the Parana basin of central South America. Then comes the Carboniferous time. Carboniferous, as the name suggests, it is made up of the two terms carbon and ferrous. So, carbon is related with the coal. That means this was the time when most of the coal formation in the world took place. This Carboniferous was introduced by Connie Bean and Philip in 1822 to describe the strata containing coal seams in north central England. The succession was subdivided into parts. The lower part was devoid of coal seams and the upper part contained the coal seams. In North America, the term Mississippian and Pennsylvanian roughly correspond to the lower and upper Carboniferous. The name Mississippian was introduced by Winchell in 1870 and Pennsylvanian by the Williams in 1891. In India, sediments of Carboniferous age are developed only within the Tethyan zone. However, the Carboniferous sediments show a large variety of sedimentary facies. Then comes the Carboniferous life. During Carboniferous time, ammonoids show diversification and make good index fossils. Shark, ray-finned fishes become very common. Brachiopod became important, especially represented by the Productus, showing spines. Crinoids also show higher diversity and became an important rock contributor. Lacy bryozoans living in muddy substrates are very prominent. In the carbonate depositional areas, few small reefs, they developed and made up of lacy bryozoans, flake-like algae and brachiopods. These reefs are often associated with the fusulinids, which are important index fossils. On the land, freshwater fishes became very common along with the mollusks. The insect developed wings and even folded wings in the late Carboniferous. Amphibians became common. Few reptiles appear in the late Carboniferous. The early Carboniferous flora show the similarity to the Devonian flora. However, in the late Carboniferous, the floral elements show changes dominated by the Lepidodendron and Sigillaria in Europe and North America. In the Gondwana land, the Glossopteris floras appear. The plants Calamites and Chordates occupy the higher areas. In the Carboniferous time, much of the coal formation took place in Europe and America. Then it is useful to discuss at the same time the Carboniferous paleogeography. During the Carboniferous, many of the continental masses which were far apart started to coalescing or the coming close to each other. The continents of the Laurentia and Baltica started moving towards the Gondwana land. However, Kazakhstan and Siberia were still separated far away. The Gondwana land, it moved southwards. The position of India was 30 degree to 40 degrees south latitudes. That means the Indian continent was situated on the southern hemisphere, and presently it is situated on the northern hemisphere. By the late Carboniferous, in response to the Harisinghian orogeny, joining of the Gondwana land and Laurentia was initiated. By the late Carboniferous age, Kazakhstan and Siberia joined together as a single landmass, and started moving towards the Laurentia. By the late Carboniferous, the position of India was 60 degrees south. The South Pole was located in parts of Gondwana land and large ice sheets started building up. The equatorial belts during Carboniferous time was hot and humid and prominent cold formation took place. The flora of Europe and America was tropical flora while that of the Gondwana land and Siberia was cold climate flora. By the late Carboniferous time, the latitudinal temperature gradient became very steep. The glaciers existed almost up to 30-degree latitude. However, in the tropical zone near equator, warm climate forests persisted. In the some areas during Carboniferous, extensive carbonate deposition also took place, which was very strongly controlled by the development of the Caledonian and the Appalachian mountain belt. The collision of Gondwana land on Laurentia landmass in the mid-Carboniferous is designated as the Hercynian or Variscan orogeny. In the eastern United States, the Alleghanian orogeny completed the formation of Appalachian mountain chain. During Carboniferous, Ouachita mountain chain in United States was formed. Then the last in the series of Paleozoic is Permian. The Permian system name was proposed by Murchison in 1840 for rocks containing specific fauna overlying the Carboniferous succession. This succession of Permian is compared to the units of Zechstein in Germany. The name Permian is derived after the small town of Ural Mountains named Perm. In India, Permian succession is often referred to as the Permo-Carboniferous because in many sections it is not possible to distinguish Upper Carboniferous from the early Permian. The marine Permian is developed initially in the Tethyan zone. In Lesser Himalaya, there are outcrops of early Permian, sometimes associated with the Gondwana deposits. Moreover, marine early Permian is also known from the Bhadora in Rajasthan, Umaria in Madhya Pradesh, and Manendragarh and Daltonganj in Bihar. In Permian time, rift valleys of the Indian subcontinent, namely Godavari, Son Narmada, Mahanadi and Damodar were activated where fluvial sedimentation took place. These fluvial deposits in rift valleys of peninsular India in Lesser Himalaya are designated as Gondwana deposits. Then comes the Permian life. The late Carboniferous flora continued into the Permian times but show a decline in the later part of it. The large lycopods and sphenopsids became extinct in the late Permian and small ferns survive. In the late Permian times, conifer and gymnosperms became more common and they continued into the Mesozoic. The amphibians and the reptiles became more advanced. Reptiles developed advanced jaw and teeth. The oldest egg has been recorded from the early Permian sediments. An important reptile of the Permian is therapsid, which are mammal-like reptiles moving in the upright position and had complex chewing apparatus. They became extinct in the late Permian. In the marine life, most of the faunal elements of Carboniferous continued into the Permian. Ammonoids are abundant. Fishes are quite common, especially the shark and ray fin fishes. The brachiopods are dominated by the productids, which developed spines and could have also lived on the muddy substrate. Fusulinid became very diverse with about 500 species. They are important index fossils in Permian. In carbonate environment, only small reefs are present, which are made up of calcareous algae and bryozoa. The end of Permian witnessed the greatest mass extinction of Earth's history. A marine system, Fusulina, rugose and tabulate corals, trilobites, they completely disappeared for no time to come. Many types of brachiopods, bryozoans and echinoids also disappeared. Bivalves and gastropods show moderate losses. Ammonoids were almost eliminated except for few survivors. In the marine system, almost 70 to 90% species became permanently extinct. Now, let us talk about the Permian paleogeography. By the early Permian time, the Siberia joined the Europe along Ural mountain chain to become part of the supercontinent. Probably Southeastern Asia remained a separate continent because of the huge supercontinent, steep latitudinal thermal gradient and many mountain chains on the land. The climate of the continents was highly diversified. It is reflected in the strong differentiation of floras. The flora of Gondwana land is a cold climate flora. The flora of Europe, America is equatorial warm climate flora. The Siberian flora is cold water flora and the Southeastern Asian flora is a temperate climate flora. There are differences in flora of both sides of Appalachian mountain in the North America. In the late Permian time, the climate became warmer in higher latitude and also in the Gondwana land. A new flora appeared known as Dicroidium flora, which replaced the cold climate Gondwana flora of early Permian time. Deposition of coal became prominent in high latitudes. However, in the equatorial belt, the climate became hot and arid and the coal deposition stopped. On the contrary, the equatorial belt of the deposition of carbonate and evaporites became prominent, which are widespread in southwestern United States and northern Europe. In the late Permian time, there was a widespread regression of sea in most places. Now, the reason for the greatest catastrophe on earth, that is the Permian Triassic mass extinction in the late Permian, are number 1, narrowing of the continental shelf due to regression leading to the crowding of the fauna. Number 2, probable lowering of the salinity level in a marine system. And number 3, strong climate changes, particularly warming up of the higher latitudes. So, friends, we have seen the different and 6 parts of the Paleozoic and each with its paleogeography and life. The Paleozoic time in the earth was a time when many of the new things happened. That means the earth as a planet had the first land plants, the first fishes, the first animals with the visual senses, and the first major catastrophe, that is the Permian Triassic mass extinction. The first coal deposition took place on earth. However, the global coal deposition was in Carboniferous, so because the name also conforms to the coal deposition events. But in India, the coal is found in the Permian. That means the coal deposition event was time transgressive. Many of the geological events in the Paleozoic, they teach us a lot about the earth's history. We will be discussing about the more interesting paleontological aspects in the lectures to come. Till then, thank you very much.